Hi guys, it's Jade Melody here and welcome back to my channel. Today we are beginning the first episode in a short series which I'm calling Healthy and Happy Hip Flexors. So if you've ever wondered why you're getting pain in the front of your legs here or kind of deep inside the top of your quads, and you're thinking, what the hell is going on? Why am I getting pain there? One reason might be because of your hip flexors. These sit at the very front right here, and a lot of the time they are a neglected muscle by many people. It can cause a lot of issues, especially for people like runners and athletes who really need power and bulletproof hip flexors. So if you are having any kind of pain and issues there, then this is the video for you. We are going to start with this first episode talking about strength of the hip flexors. Oftentimes people think that they're just not flexible there or etc, but sometimes the issue is that you just have weak hip flexors. So today we're going to work on strengthening those hip flexors. The first thing we're going to do for this is test, is it the strength of your hip flexors, and find out if that is actually the issue that's causing it first of all, and then I'm going to take you through exactly how to fix it. So if you're ready for episode number 1 of Healthy and Happy Hip Flexors, then do join me, grab yourself a mat, and we're going to get ready to jump straight into this. So one of the easiest ways to figure out if you have weak hip flexors, there's two ways. Way number 1, you can do this one with a friend. It's all you can do is sit on a chair or a bed or a sofa, and all you're going to do is lift up one of your legs. Your friend is then going to come along and try and push down your leg into the floor, and you're going to try and resist them pushing. If you find this not too easy, or you're really quick to drop that leg down, then you might be having weak hip flexors. However, if you're able to kind of resist your friend's hand for a little bit and you're not finding it too difficult, then you might have quite strong hip flexors. But here's one to do if you don't have. Okay, so the first strength one we're going to go for is basically just trying to practice the test you just did with lifting the legs up into the air. The closer you have the legs together, the easier this becomes, and the further you lean back, the easier too. So we're looking for, in the long run, to kind of lean forwards and have both your arms across one of your legs, trying to make sure that we're doing both sides and that leg is going to stay locked as you can. If you're struggling to do more than one lift, try and just do a lift with a hold and then go back down. Trying to hold it at the top, keeping that leg locked, trying to push those toes into the sky, trying to keep that back nice and rounded and push your hands down into the floor, and just trying to lift and hold at the top position. Eventually we'll be trying to go wider and wider into this position, and if you get quite advanced you can start trying to do both legs. One really fun combo is to lift both legs up and then pushing those hands into the floor. You're going to be lifting. Just keep lifting those legs into the sky, both at the same time in a big V shape, as wide as you possibly can. Again, back's trying to stay really rounded when you're in that position, and your legs are also trying to stay really straight. A super fun little combo, if you want to make this even more difficult, is lifting legs and then lifting your bum. So you're going to lift your legs into the sky, then lean forwards onto those hands and lift that bum up, keeping those feet on the floor. Fun little combo here, really good if you're trying to improve your handstands as well, and very tough on those hip flexors. So you can just keep practicing those kind of seated test ones that you did in the beginning if you'd like, or we can start adding a little bit more weight if you really want to focus on the strengthening here. So one thing you can do is grab a cable, and you can use a little cuff attachment to attach your ankle to the cable. Now holding on to something, all you're going to do is have your leg lengthened out behind you and then drive the knee into the chest. So the leg is going to lengthen behind and then drive that knee into the chest. We're holding onto that bench for as much stability as possible, as we're not really working the core here, we're trying to work those hip flexors. Now of course the more weight you put on this one, the more difficult it's going to get, and this is a good way to be able to actually load your hip flexors with weight. Although those first exercises on the floor are fantastic, they don't load any weight, so eventually you might kind of struggle with other reasons due to flexibility or whatever, but still want to be able to add more weight. Next up we have what's called a hip flexor sit-up. So we're going to be lying on a bench and we're going to be putting a heavy weight or kettlebell or whatever you want to on the floor. You're going to hook one foot underneath that weight and you're going to lift the other leg into the sky. From there we're trying to go for a sit-up, thinking about pulling the foot that's under the weight into the weight. So I'm really trying to almost act like I'm going to lift that weight off the floor. I'm obviously not, because it's too heavy to lift off with one leg, but that's what I'm thinking about doing, is pulling my toes up into that weight, and you'll see that sometimes it might start to roll the weight a little bit if it's on a bit of a slippery surface, but you're going for essentially just a normal kind of sit up here. The other leg is not really doing anything. This one's just going to stay in the air there, and I'm focusing on one hip flexor at a time. You can do this with both legs, but I find one gives you a little bit more time to actually think about your hip flexor. So again, you can see those toes underneath that weight, pulling the weight into me, and thinking about using my core and my hip flexors to pull my body all the way up to an upright seated position. Next up, we have a little one that you can do with a band and a squat rack. This one's quite good if you want to kind of warm up for your squats with this one, as you're going to be already at the squat rack. So we're going to be taking the bar out of the squat rack, and we're going to be dropping the hooks almost all the way to the floor, as low as they can possibly go, all the way down to the bottom on this one. They're going to be grabbing a band. Now, the harder and wider, heavier the band is, the more difficult this one will get. Or if you want to pick a slightly thinner, looser one, then you can go for it. So pick whatever you need to for your ability. We also need a little step, so either a Reebok step, or you can stack some plates on top of each other. Completely up to you, whatever you have is fine. You're going to be standing on top of that elevation and popping one of your toes under that band. From there, again, we're just going to be driving that knee from down to up. Now, this one's not going to be coming behind you in the way the cable one is, so you should be able to kind of load a little bit more and just focus on the power up. Now, you can either pop your foot under just one part of the band, or if you want to add more resistance, you can pop your toes under both sides of the band. Again, try to not use your abs to crunch down, trying to use your knee to drive up into the chest. So try not to crunch the abs down, try and drive the knee up into the chest on this one. Really trying to pull those toes against the band. Now, you can kind of do this in a backwards position if you would like, just by putting the step and elevation in front instead. The only issue is sometimes it's not as easy to hold on to something, but you can still do it where you're then pulling from behind and to front, just like we did on that cable machine. So now stretching behind you and pulling in front. Still trying to get that knee as high as you possibly can on this one. So really trying to squeeze that knee up into chest. Again, you can pick to just loop your foot over one part of the band or over both parts of the bands, depending on how difficult you want to make this one. Next up is an exercise which you'll often see used for your core, and it can be a good core exercise when done correctly. However, we're going to use it for hip flexors. So hanging off of the bar, you can either do one leg at a time if you're struggling, or you can do both bent or straight legs. I'll demo all of them. So here we're just going to do one leg at a time, bending up. Now, the key to not getting the core involved too much is to keep your hips completely still. Just think about moving from those knees up into that chest. Obviously, there's a bit of a challenge from the grip and upper body here, especially if you're starting to do straight leg ones, then it can be a bit more of a challenge to lift that all the way up. Now, if we were using our abs, we would be trying to tuck the bum underneath you. You'd be trying to tuck your bum underneath you like so if you were using abs. If you're not using your abs, you're just trying to use hip flexors, make sure to leave your bum and your hips super still and just focus on driving your legs one at a time. You can also do this on the ab machine where you're just on your elbows instead of hanging. So this is a bit of a challenge on the grip, on the upper body, the hip flexors, the core and everything. So great to add to kind of a full body day if you would like to hit everything. And you can also just do one leg at a time straight, one leg at a time bent, or both legs at a time straight, both legs at a time bent. You can really adapt it for whatever you need to for your ability here. And lastly, we're going to be moving down onto the floor and getting a little mini band. So you're going to pop a mini band over the middle of your foot. We're going to do some mountain climbers, but pulling that mini band. Again, good kind of test of the shoulder stability as well as the core, but also the hip flexors here. Heavier band, harder it's going to get. Easier band, easier it's going to get. I'm just going to be driving the band up. So again, the focus is coming from the knees, pulling into the chest here, and I'm pulling that band, keeping my toes flexed to ensure that band doesn't slip off, and trying to drive the knee up and into the chest as you're going here. Final one we're going to do here is also going to be on the floor with a big Swiss ball. So we're going to go into a dead bug position. So hands on top of one side of the Swiss ball, knees onto the other. And we're going to be going for opposite leg extending and opposite hand extending. Down to the floor, then bringing it back together. Again, you'll often see this used for a core exercise, which it is also great for. But if you're using your other knee and hand to squeeze the Swiss ball together, you'll find your hip flexors will be super activated as well here. Plus a little bit of a core one, so best of both worlds. So when you are going down, making sure to squeeze the Swiss ball with your other knee and hand. And that is it, guys. That's episode number 1 ticked off, where we have figured out whether you have weak hip flexors and also how to fix it. Hopefully this was helpful for you, and do let me know how you got along, and make sure to subscribe so you can see the next episodes in this to help out make those hip flexors even more healthy and even more happy. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye!